This is an oral history interview with Tom Mudrock and Roger Delforge for the Louisville Historical Museum. It's February 19th, 2018, and I'm Barbara Gigone. I'm with Adie Kupfner and Jean Morgan. Jean is on the camera. Adie will also be asking some questions. To start this out, through the First and Second World Wars, the Korean conflict, the Vietnam War, and other world conflicts still going on, as well as in peacetime, Louisville men and women have served their country. Today we're interviewing these two Vietnam veterans about their service, as well as their longtime friendship and growing up here in Louisville. So first, we're going to ask your names. We'll start with Roger. Any nicknames that you want to mention. And also tell us when and where you were born, and your parents' names, and possibly your grandparents if they were also in Louisville. And tell us when your family members first came to Louisville.
Okay.
Roger.
My name's Roger Delforge. I was born 544 Grand Avenue, 1946. Number 6 of the clan.
All right. Does that mean you were the youngest of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mother's name Esther, father's name Frank. Well, growing up in Louisville was an experience.
When did your family come to Louisville originally?
From what Sister Adie has documented and an old Louisville Times in 1976. The old house was originally built in 1892.
All right. Wow. That's early on here.
Yeah, and from what I can remember, some of the conversations with my mother, our mother, they had dirt floors when she was a child in the house. And it went through some, I don't know, called remodeling. We just kept adding on inside.
Were they originally miners? Where did they come from? Where did the family come from originally?
What, Germany, Austria, or on mother's side.
Okay. I'm going to ask Tom some of the same questions. So let's start with your name, when and where you were born.
Tom, born in Boulder, 6/30/47, 100 years ago.
Just seems that way.
yeah, it sure does some days.
And do you have any nicknames, or you were always Tom?
Pardon?
Do you have any nicknames?
Moody.
Moody. Okay. What about your parents? Were they born in Louisville?
I was trying to think of where. My mom, Cleo, was, I think, Boulder. I'm not sure.
Around the area then. Yeah.
My dad, Albert, was, I think he was born in Louisville too. Because we lived right next door to my grandma, Louisa.
I see.
What the hell is it? I was just going to say the address in it.
So that's fine. It'll probably come up while we're
625 Grant.
talking.
Yeah, because your side of the street was 44, yeah. And my grandmother, my grandpa, John Mudrock, Ann and John lived right next door. Then my grandpa Damiana, my mom's father, lived down on Main Street, right across from the museum, the 2 houses up. And my cousin Gary Damiana lives in the house now.
Long, many years, family history here. Yeah. What country did the family originally come from? Is that English or?
Czechoslovakia for my grandma. My grandma and grandpa was from Italy.
Okay. Well, tell us how. I guess you met because you were same age, lived near each other.
10 months older than him. So when we were walking and talking, we were running around together.
What do you remember about those days?
Getting into a lot of mischief.
Playing football in the dirt streets.
Right.
Well, a lot of people you talk to, they don't believe that we still had outdoor toilets then either.
I've heard they were right behind this house too.
1953, we got indoor plumbing.
Something around then. Yeah.
A little bit
Yeah.
later.
It was a little later than
Yeah, a
that.
little bit
Yeah.
later than
Yeah.
that.
55 maybe, I can't remember. It's-
Do you remember your first encounter of meeting, or was it just a happening? I mean, do you?
Well, no, but Mom used to take me over after he was born. Mom used to walk over to visit Cleo and family. So, yeah, I met him when I was just maybe 11 months old. He was a month old. Yeah, I don't quite remember too much about that, but
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, from the time we could run around town, little kids, 4 or 5 years old.
I think, Tom, you said you spent a lot of time at the Delforge house.
Yeah, we did. We made our own fun. There's, the hills, Jefferson and Grant Hills. We used to go on our sleds all the way from there down home. And then down from Joe Malcolm's. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
they'd go up a shovel, Harper Lake, ice skate. And yeah, it was pretty neat.
Everything was right
Yeah.
here for you.
Yeah, well, there wasn't a lot of traffic, so we didn't have to worry too much about getting run
Yeah.
over.
Were they still red dirt streets at that time, or had
Oh,
they
yeah.
paved the streets?
Made a nice mound for kicking the football until you crashed. Lots of road rash up on bicycles.
And then you carried all the red dirt
And
into
then,
the
yeah,
house. Is that what happened?
Roger's house was here, and then there was an empty lot, and then Mary O'Brien's. And we got, 20-some inches of snow when we come up with that idea of using roller skates for cleats to play football with that.
I remember that.
Wasn't too fast, but by golly, we didn't fall down
So you played football in the snow?
in roller
Oh,
skates.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, in roller skate.
Yeah, but the roller skates on for cleats to...
So where'd you go to school?
Louisville High. Well,
Yeah.
I went right here to St. Louis School, Catholic school.
And you went to the elementary school? Or?
where Memory Square Park
Across
is.
the
Yeah.
street.
Yeah.
Met up after
Public
school.
Yeah, the public school.
I think Mom went there too, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. That's where I learned to write so well, from doing I will not this, I will not, I will not.
Did you have to stay after class to
Oh,
write
yeah.
that?
First day of second grade, I had to write 500 times something I did. And it just continued.
Because you didn't learn.
Yeah. And then you both went to Louisville Middle School. And
There was no middle school.
there was no middle school.
Oh,
then.
it
Yeah.
was eighth
So
grade.
eighth grade, and
then
then-
you went to the high school.
And then
You
that's.
went, Catholic school up to the 8th grade, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he only went.
And it was 7th, 8th through, 9, 10, 11, 12 when I went. And everybody else in my family.
Yeah.
But they called it junior high, 7th and 8th grade. back then.
Right. And then in school you were in the same class?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
In high school? And what about sports? You
Well, I played football.
seemed like everybody had some sports.
Tommy
at
played
the-
football for a year or two, and then he found other fun things to do.
I went duck hunting.
Tell us about the duck hunting. You started that pretty early in your life?
Yeah, when I was 8 years old with my grandpa hunting pheasants. Well, there used to be pheasants all over here in town. Down at Johnny Hicks's, Bessie'd chase them around with a fishing net trying to catch them to...
You're kidding, really?
Yeah, because we lived right here. I'd come home from school in the front door, grab a shotgun, boots, go down, see Mary Johnson wave at her, go around the chicken coop, and where the elementary school is now. If I ever walked 100 yards past where the elementary school is to get my limit of pheasants, that was a bad night. And then we'd go down over the tracks from my grandpa Damiana's house on Main Street, down to Lastoka's farm to Mayhoffers down on the creek by Larry Hafner's, and
Out by the cemetery.
Yeah.
for a limit of pheasants. And
So after if you shot a pheasant, did you have to dress it, clean it?
oh yeah, learned that. And I was also told that if you shoot it, you eat it. And I had to be a smart aleck and shoot a crow, and somebody told my grandpa that I shot the crow and I damn near had to eat it. So that I learned.
That was the last crow you shot.
I learned real quick. You go by the rules. And
Yeah.
Roger has a really good pheasant story.
He had mentioned
Yeah.
the Hickses, Johnny and Bessie Hicks. Well, they were like my grandma and grandpa. And I used to go there for lunch all the time. In high school a lot, and then after got out of the service, I worked here in town, and so did Tom. So one time I come home for lunch, and I smelled something. I'm going, boy, this smells good. I said, what we having? She goes, we're having pheasant. And I says, what? Grandpa John don't hunt pheasant. She goes, no, I caught it. It was hung up in the fence in the backyard. I went down and wrung its neck. And we're having pheasant for lunch. I said, okay.
Okay.
Okay, by me.
What about fishing? Did you
Yeah.
catch a lot of
Oh, boy.
fish? And,
Yeah, his grandpa taught him, and Johnny Hicks taught me how to fly fish.
yeah, I got lots of pictures at home of us up in Basalt. You know, me and Raj, Donnie, and Donnie
Why
Cummings.
basalt? What,
Big fish,
yeah.
nice fish.
Well,
Yeah.
the older guys.
And
Used
all
to go up
the,
there.
The old timers went up there, and we just continued the
Tradition, I
We
guess.
really had it made
Yeah.
because the lady that owned the fishing cabins, the Rainbow Motel on the Frying Pan, would let us stay in the house. We stayed in the cabins for a long time, but she'd let us stay in the house and stuff for free. And of course, we'd shovel snow. Used to go up first,
Yeah.
like what, 20-some years. We went up there. The 26th of February was our first fly fishing trip. And
When did you learn to drive?
When I could see over the steering wheel, basically. I mean, that was really hard because I wasn't very tall.
my grandpa used to take.
Then you
Yeah.
weren't very
Well, I
tall.
ain't very tall now either, but you know,
Used to
God,
take
made it all the way to
4x4s.
5'6".
4x4s, put them on. He had a 39 Dodge. We painted it black with paintbrushes because he didn't like the green. And it really come out, he bought these camel hair brushes, and it really come out pretty nice. I mean, unless you got up close to it, you couldn't see the brush marks. And I masked it all off. And but he'd take those 4x4s and put them on the clutch, the brake, and the gas pedal.
Because your legs were too short to,
Yeah,
to
and then
reach.
pillows behind me, and he says, if something happens, we used to always fish Marshall Lake and Boulder Canyon. He says, you're going to learn how to drive, and you're going to be able to get the car home if something happens to me. And God, I was
How old were you?
about 10.
Okay.
First time I drove pickup and camper over Trail Ridge, I was 14.
Overthrottled.
Yeah, you'd take the old man's truck
Yeah.
to school when he was working, and I don't know, he was working someplace and had a ride, so my mom would give me the keys. And
Did you put a lot of other kids in the car too? Did you go to
Mostly just-
dances or what did?
He was usually about, well, it was always me and Raj, Donnie Cummings, mostly the three of us. Tommy Cisneros, he was always in his car. Whoever had gas.
Yeah, whoever could afford 23 cents a gallon.
What about your first car, Roger?
Well, first I learned, actually the first time I actually drove from Lafayette to Louisville, our brother Don had a 61 Chevy and automatic, and he let me drive it from Lafayette to home. Didn't hit anything, so I guess things were good. But that was still a stretch.
Yeah.
Because back then they had steering wheels like, because they didn't have power steering. So the steering wheels were big, so you could turn a little easier. So it was basically looking under the steering wheel.
Yeah, under the horn ring.
Yeah,
That's the way my 57 was.
my first car I bought from him.
Was that good or bad?
Well, it was good. It was transportation.
Yeah.
It was 51 Chevy, 4-door, 6-banger automatic. Everything I didn't want in a car. I wanted a V8 3-speed 2-door, but
Whoa.
for $50 you can't go wrong. It was his grandpa Damianus, I believe, and when his grandpa passed away, and then shortly after that his grandpa Mudrock passed away, and he had a 50 black 2-door 6-banger stick shift. Well, Tommy kept that and sold me the green one.
It had an ugly
Yeah.
visor on it too.
We
But it got us from point A to point B, so that's...
parts were interchangeable, because I remember he dented the front bumper on his vehicle and didn't want his dad to know, so we pulled his car in the alley. Mine was up on blocks. It blew the motor up, and I says, well, this bumper will fit. We swapped bumpers.
Were they different? Were they the same color?
Bumpers are chrome.
Oh, the bumpers,
Everything
I'm
was
thinking of
chrome,
the,
yeah.
I'm thinking of
Fenders.
okay.
Oh, no, the fenders would have fit, but yeah, we would have had to paint it.
Yeah.
You know, if you needed.
Oh yeah, it was exactly the same bumper.
Yeah, okay.
50, 51 back
thinking
then,
of
they
the-
made things the same, so you could interchange.
So you graduated then in 1965.
65.
So it was just Vietnam War. We were
Yeah.
sort of in Vietnam at that
Mhm.
time.
Yep. Buddy Ferrari
Uh-huh.
and Tommy Cisneros were the first ones to go. They came home when we went over. They were out.
Were they drafted or did
No.
they join join
Tommy
right?
joined the Marines and
Uh-huh.
Buddy joined the Army.
He was like airborne ranger.
Yeah, Charlie Melvin also
Okay.
went in that time, that era.
From your class, those were.
Well, they were a little, few years older.
They had to come and
Okay.
get me.
Okay. Well, talk about then what you graduated. Did you go to work or did you
They went to
have
Europe,
fun?
and
Yeah.
me and Louis Lombardi went to the Mardi Gras the year after we got out of school for
In New Orleans? Yeah.
almost a month we spent down
Yeah.
there.
Huh.
We couldn't go to Europe with Donnie and Roger and Greg, and so I got this wild hair, and we decided we took train down to New Orleans and spent almost a month down there for
Yeah, I
Mardi Gras.
wish I had the letter you wrote me. I was on bivouac. Basic training, out in the desert, freezing.
And he was still
I was
having
in
fun.
New Orleans,
fun
yeah.
at
Him
Mardi
and Louis
Gras.
write a letter. We're having a good time. Wish you were here, ha ha ha. And I wrote him back. You're going to be here, ha ha ha.
Well, tell us about Europe, and then we got to find out about the draft or the
Well,
or the joining.
I knew I was going to get drafted. So we started, Donnie Cummings and Greg Kemp's got a wild hair about going to Europe after high school. They said, yeah, well, right, yeah, I don't want to go. They said, well, you're going. We'll put you in the trunk. You're going with us. And I said, okay. So they were serious. So we started researching this in January. And my job was to get passports and something else. So that was my job, to see what we had to do to get our passports. And Donnie was in charge of finding a way from New York to England via boat. And Greg knew some people that lived in Glen Gardner, New Jersey, an old retired coal miner, and that's who we were going to stay with. So our game plan was to drive out with Greg's car, put the car up and then go to Europe and come back. Well, everything was copacetic until we in Irwin, Pennsylvania, when the car blew up. And that was it. We got it towed to a garage, put out in the park, in the dirt, and then I sat there and guarded the car, and they went into town. They found a motel, and then we called Herman Manish was his name, and he actually rented a tow bar, drove up from Glen Gardner. We towed the car back, put it up on blocks, and stayed there a couple of days, and then he took us to the train depot, and from there we went to got on the boat and went to Europe. And
So you went by boat then? I was gonna
Yeah.
ask if you had plane reservations
Uh,
already, but you,
we flew back.
yeah.
We actually kind of run out of money. We had to borrow some to get home. We had gas money in that. We didn't have enough for the plane ticket, but this Vincent James sent the money to Greg, and so we had enough money to buy our plane ticket home.
So how did you get around in Europe?
Thumb?
It worked?
Oh, you'd be surprised. You put that American flag on that backpack and people are pulling over. And a lot of Americans and Europeans. You know, and back then we thought, this is 1965, summer of 65. We thought being, going to France would be, the people were unfriendly. No. The people in England were snottier than the people in France, in Germany, Belgium, Switzerland. We traveled quite a bit. We covered pretty good ground. It wasn't too hard to get a ride.
Did you stay together the whole time?
Nah, Donnie usually would go ahead of us. And then we'd catch him, me and Greg. And Greg and I only split up one night. It was right out of
Where
Nuremberg.
did you stay?
We stayed in youth hostels, fields. I remember the day I turned 19. We're 60 miles from Nuremberg. We're out in the field underneath a tree, laid out our sleeping bags. We hear this noise. I said, well, there's some lights. I said, oh, there's a villa. So let's go in. Greg said, I'll buy you a beer for your birthday. I just turned 19. We go into town. We go to this bar. They're having a wedding reception. Well, Greg Camps had the gift of gab. So we end up part of the wedding party. Eating and drinking for free and partying with this people, these Germans. And on our way, we had a pretty good time. We go back to our sleeping bags and sleep the night. And next day we get up and we're crossing the field and hear this whoof, whoof. Turn around, there's the biggest black bull I ever seen in my life. He come running, and so did we. And it was like diving over the fence, backpack and all. Just that bull was. I said, you must have been sleeping last night, Greg. It's a watch bull, I guess. Scared the hell out of me. So that was my experience on my 19th birthday.
Were you at the time thinking about you might be drafted at any
Oh,
time?
I knew I was going to get drafted. It's just a matter of when. And when I went to New York, when we got home, it was 5 or 6 days from the time we hit Port Entry till we hit Louisville. And I'm down Donnie Cummings' house after I went home and seen Mom. And she called down there. She goes, got something in the mail. I says, does it say greetings? She goes, yep. I said, damn, they didn't waste no time. The notice came the day I got home
Yeah.
to go pre-induction physical and that was in early November, and then 2 months later, January 4th, I was in Fort West.
Wow. And Tom was still having fun down in Louisiana, or
Oh yeah, well I was having fun at El Dorado too. I knew I was getting drafted, and
yeah.
we were up there. Well, I got my physical papers on my 19th birthday, and we was up at El Dorado in the 3-2 bar up there at the swimming pool, and got offered a free ride to Vegas. So I called Fred Thone, was the president of the bank, called him from El Dorado, and he says, what do you need? I said, I need my money. He said, for what? He says, today? I said, yeah, today. I said, I'm leaving 5 o'clock in the morning. He goes, for where? I said, Las Vegas. I said, I'm going out for my 19th birthday. And he says, well, you can't get into nothing. I said, oh yeah. I said, I can get in. So we left in a 59 Chevy with no air conditioning, 2-lane road all the way to Vegas, open range, cattle on the road. Got there, and I stayed in almost every hotel I could think of just to say I was there, and then spend the night. And the only place I got thrown out of was the Golden Nugget downtown. And I come down in the sands, 3 o'clock in the morning with Rosemary Clooney, Bobby Darin in the elevator, and they're really nice. And you know, just got to BSing with them, and so he set us up at the table right by the stage, free drink tickets, but we didn't get like a bunch of jerks either. Maintained it. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then the guy that I went out with, I got in a to-do with them, so I got mad and I hitchhiked home, beat him home. First ride I got in Las Vegas went all the way to Price, Utah. From Price, Utah, I got delivered right to the front door of the. And in the meantime, I had wrote my mom and dad a note. They were up at our cabin in Grand Lake, and I said, quit my job, went to Las Vegas. I said, see you later.
Do you think that, for both of you, that you were going to sort of have a fling because you knew that you were going to be drafted or
Oh, yeah.
had to join and
I thoroughly expected that I'd never see Louisville again. It's just,
Well, I enlisted after 4 days. Basic training. You take tests for 4 days. True,
Okay.
false.
Yeah.
Some essay. They said I qualified to go to electronics school. I said, fine. What does that mean? I said, well, it can cost you another year. I said, maybe I won't go to Vietnam. I'll get some education out of this. And so I enlisted.
So if you'd been drafted, you probably would have been sent
Oh.
right to Vietnam.
Yeah.
Wait, was that the Army?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you?
We both went to Fort Bliss, Texas for basic, and then I went to Fort Monmouth, New Jersey for electronic school, transmitter repair and technical control. And then from there they sent me to Okinawa, and I spent 21 months on Okinawa, and that pretty much ended my 3 years. I was done.
What was that, Okinawa? What, was it a base or?
It's an island,
Yeah.
67 miles long, 10.7 at the widest. It's like driving from here to Colorado Springs. There you run out of real estate.
The U.S. had a base there.
Yeah. We were the main hub of the wheel of all the Far East communications, top secret, you name it. We had 20 or 52 crypto circuits all over the world. Vietnam, Korea, Guam, everywhere you can imagine. But like I said, we were the hub of the wheel. So all the stuff from Vietnam and Korea and that came through us before it went to Hawaii.
When you say it all came to, you mean like equipment and things, or?
Messages.
Messages.
Yeah,
Okay.
over transmitters, from one transmitter to the next, to us. And then I think it was landlines from Hawaii down to, somehow, all the way to, from Hawaii to California.
So
But it
Roger,
was,
your training when you went to Fort Monmouth, was that in communications?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
look, yeah, it was a transmitter repair school and then an extension course of technical control. That was another 10 weeks. Then I got held on casual. They told me they had to check on my trip to Europe that I might have ran across some communists, and I told them, I says, chances are I did, but I wouldn't have known it.
She was
So-
being investigated for.
So it cost me
meeting with
another
the
2 or
Russians.
3 months. I sit in casual.
Really?
And when I got to Okinawa, the 3 guys that went ahead of me, they were all E4s, and I was still an E3. So I kind of slowed my process of, getting promoted a little bit. But
Yeah.
it was an interesting job.
What about you, Tom? You enlisted.
no.
No, you were drafted. Okay.
No, I wasn't volunteering.
You're gonna wait until they took you, huh?
No, they had to come and get me.
And they did.
And they did.
Yeah.
Same thing, went to Fort Bliss for basic training. And of course, there was lots of guys quite a few guys from Louisville there, just in different barracks as at different stages of basic training. And we didn't get a leave after basic, because that was 22nd of September I was down there. And, but we got an extra 3 or 4 days for Christmas leave. But they sent us to Fort Polk, Louisiana for jungle training out in the swamps in the winter.
What fort was that, Tom?
Pardon?
What fort was that in Louisiana?
Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Polk.
Polk, yeah, P-O-L-K.
Yeah, if you from basic training, you went to Polk or Leonard Wood, you know your next stop was Vietnam.
Well, you must have been ahead of the game, so to speak, though, with all your outdoor experience and everything growing up.
Oh, yeah, you know.
According,
And I was so
a
naive
lot
when
of people that came in.
got drafted, you know, I just assumed everybody hunted and fished. And we're out there in White Sands, New Mexico, by Fort Bliss, that's where the rifle range was. And, you know, you're out there with these guys and they have no idea what end of the weapon the bullet's coming out of or goes in, and I'm going, oh, this is really...
Might have grown up in New York City or something. They didn't have that.
Then at Fort Polk, I wrote Larry Schreider and Greg Camps a letter. They were at Fort Bliss, coming right behind me. I said, man, whatever you guys do, try to figure out something where you don't have to come to Fort Polk. I said, because it's a shithole. And it was old condemned barracks, burned down in less than 2 minutes.
Wow.
President Kennedy, they still had the circles with numbers on how they were supposed to be torn down. You had a fire watch, top floor, bottom floor all night. It took about 2 minutes to burn one down if something went wrong. And, but anyway, we were out playing in the swamps, and I was telling Raj this morning, and my bunk was on the bottom. There was a wall heater there. And we had all this junk on it, and I was throwing my bayonet against the wall, sticking it. And somebody said something, and I went too hard, and it hit on the handle. Well, it knocked a hole on the outside right there. And a friend of mine up on the top bunk that was up there, he said, sure, you got to make the hole and air condition my bunk. And anyway, we was laughing about it, and pretty soon he says, what's the matter? I says, there's 2 voices right outside of this barracks. And I says, I know them voices. And I went running outside, and there was Larry Schreider and Greg Kemps.
Oh, people from Louisville.
Oh yeah, our class.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I was
so
with
they
them.
ended up down there also.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they
And that's how you knew.
were right. Yeah, they were in the barracks coming right next to us, and but they had a bar there called Tigerland, and you couldn't even wear a pistol belt in there or take a steel helmet. You had to stack all your stuff outside. Everybody was going to Vietnam that was in there. And it took about 1/10 of a second for 2 guys to get in a fight over something. And then from there went to Fort Knox, Kentucky for 3 or 4 weeks to learn how to drive APCs, armored personnel carriers. Past that, the only time I never did drive one overseas or operate it, but rode on them. And I mean, you didn't ride inside them, you rode on top of them because of the mines. They'd blow it up.
How many people did they hold?
Pardon?
How many people did they hold?
Oh, probably crammed 12, 14 people in there. But they said they were armored personnel carriers. It was aluminum. 30-06 round would go right through it. It's another reason why he didn't ride in it. And we seen one at a place called Bong Song Valley. It was down south towards Saigon. No, another place called Benoit. That's where I went in. It was all flat down there, and they had a command detonated mine, which was the booby trap. Was like a big mine. They dug a hole in the road, put it, and then had somebody with a electric cap and stuff. The guy driving come out of it about as high as the peak of your roof, went in a rice paddy, blowed everybody off the side. That thing went up about half as high as a telephone pole. And nobody got hurt.
Oh, wow.
They all lit in the mud.
So did you get into battle?
Yeah, well, let's see, I'd left Fort Knox, and then all the guys I was with there, they had went to Oakland before I got there. But I was telling Raj this morning, you get had a card about, this big. So it's building 652 on it, and just massive warehouse buildings. And that's where you shipped out from. Well, they'd have formations in the morning, and they would take that card for guard duty and KP. But I knew all the guys that were going out ahead of me, I'd get their cards. Then get them to two guys I run around with. Well, we'd stand in the front of the line where you didn't want to be, because that's where they'd pick. So we'd just give them the card, and then we'd go, and you knew you weren't shipping out that day because they called all the names, so we'd go to Oakland, San Francisco.
So they were calling somebody else's name, not
whatever,
not yours.
yeah. But yeah, I went into, God, I thought it was hot in Hawaii when we stopped for fuel. Got out of Benoit, it was like somebody hit you in the chest with a sledgehammer. There's the heat and humidity, and then went to a place, to the 196 Light Infantry, and a place called Tay Ninh. That's way down south part of Vietnam, and there was a mountain there, Nui Ba Dinh. It was the Black Virgin. Special Forces was on the top, and then there was like NVA on the bottom of the mountain, and that was all, it was just flat. And then from there we went to that Bong Song Valley, and that started getting in the hills. We worked with the Korean and Rock Marines and the 7th Armored Cav. And then from there they shipped us up north to Chu Lai, which is about 50 miles from, that's where those pictures are from. 50 miles south of Da Nang, on a hill in that bunker. There's 5 of us living in that bunker.
What was your job there? What
Infantry.
was your assignment? So marching, because you were in the infantry, was that?
Well, you was out on patrol every day. Yeah,
Yeah.
you were and then me and my big mouth had me on point on most of the.
Didn't learn from high school, huh?
One
What
question.
did that mean?
Pardon?
Oh, but,
What did that? You said that you were on point. What?
First one,
Oh, okay.
and that's usually the
Oh,
guy that walks into the ambush.
the one that's going to find out whether
Yeah, that and
the enemy's there or
somebody
not.
carrying
Oh.
a radio. Yeah, because what the heck was I there? It says when I got my Purple Heart. More, I forget what it says on that thing there. It was out of the Louisville Times. But we got hit. We were going across a rice paddy, a dry rice paddy, and then it was tank tracks. There's a guy in, he was about 30 yards from the bushes here, and then Sergeant, well, we used to call him Kiwi. Nobody could pronounce his Hawaiian name, so we just gave him the name Sergeant Kiwi. He was about 30, 40 yards from any cover, and when they opened up, they started in the middle with a machine gun, went out, come back in, and went out. But you felt the dirt hitting you, and then, I mean, you're immediately, and I was carrying a radio that didn't work, laying in a tank track, and I put the radio up in front of me, and the next thing I know, you hear this whap, and I got shot through the helmet. Bullet went 30-06 round, went through in right here, come out on this side about that big, and I had, you got your helmet,
Oh my
your steel
gosh.
helmet, and a helmet liner's got 4 straps in it, where they cross. Well, it cut 3 of the 4. It went through 2 letters I had in my helmet, one from my mom, one from Judy Fivet. And then,
That was
and
the
I
part
killed-
you didn't want.
Huh?
You parted your hair on the other side.
They took off a strip of hair about inch wide all the way. And then I kept my weapon clean from hunting. Got 2 rounds out of that M16 and it jammed. So I couldn't look and trying to figure out how I can get the shell out. Well, I took my pen apart and you still got the old brass filler. Put a bend in it, got the shell out. Put the magazine in, put a shell in, got about 4 more rounds out and I got shot in the forearm. Next one hit the magazine. And then when them guys finally got there, well, and then this kid on the end, Chuck Downey, I've got his name off that traveling wall. When they opened up on him, they started at his ankles and ran up to about here with that machine gun. And then they hit Sergeant Kiwi. Good Lord was watching over me. They hit another guy. They were just wounded though. Chuck was the only one that got killed that day. But it's so damn hot, you know, you had your shirt unbuttoned. And when them friends of mine finally got there, and the gunships come in with the helicopter gunships, got up and I looked at my shirt and Ed Swift, that friend of mine, says, "Look at your shirt. And right here, there are 4 bullet holes."
I think somebody was looking
Yeah.
over Dick that
That
day.
helmet got hit twice. I got with an M1 carbine, come across like this, and put a dent in it when it it didn't go in. But
Were there medics there too?
pardon?
Were there medics with your group or?
The what? I'm sorry.
Medical people, were they?
Yeah, we had a
Here.
medic with us, and, but he was taking care. I told him, "I'm fine. Don't worry about it. Go ahead and." That friend of mine, Joe from Kansas City, says, "I'll never forget that sound when that bullet hit that helmet." I said, "You think you'll never forget it?"
And so you were being shot at when your gun jams, and you have to do all of this mechanics to your gun
Yeah.
while they're still shooting at you
Yeah.
in order to try to defend them. Wow.
The M14 was a better weapon than the
That's
M16.
what I got. Got the M14, and then I says, "I want an extra one. I want a 45 too."
Well, yeah.
But how clever you were to fix that.
Pardon me?
But how clever you were to fix that jammed gun. How clever. Just smart.
Thinking on your feet.
Yeah.
Just you do what you got to do to.
Yeah.
Well, in training that you grew up with, from
Yeah.
learning about.
No, that's just something I come up. Just it's all I had. And then,
Yeah.
well, I had a bayonet, but it wouldn't. You couldn't get it in the chamber. 'Cause the M16 round is. So that's about that long, but it's big as a pencil, and it jammed inside the chamber of the weapon, and bayonet won't go in there. And
How did you get out of did they come in and take the group?
the other
whole
part
group
of
out,
our
or-
unit, second platoon, heard all because the radio didn't work. I was trying to call.
Yeah.
And they heard all of the shooting, and they called the gunships. And then the gunships, well, they could tell by looking at us we were out in the open compared to. And then they just started with their rockets, and they first started with the M60 machine guns, each door of the chopper. Excuse me. And they opened up with the machine guns and the rockets, and of course that dissipated everybody. And
So they were shooting from the air then?
Oh, yeah.
Helicopters, yeah.
One of the questions I was thinking of, Tom, when you went through your training, your jungle training, how long of that training did you have? How, and what did it entail to prepare you for what you were going to go into?
walking around in mud.
Okay, yeah.
You know, and then of course we all, they had it was just so thick, and how to look for booby traps, and it's like not quite 8 weeks.
8 weeks, okay. 8 weeks to
And
prepare
then,
you for
yeah,
Vietnam.
and then they had a mock POW camp where they really, they had lots of people that was watching, because a lot of guys didn't put up with that. They weren't supposed to get carried away, and you were supposed to play along, you know, well, that somebody goes up and starts smearing mud in somebody's face, a guy'd get up and knock them lieutenants right on their butt. And then I got caught, of course. But then we're laying there and they're kicking mud and stuff all over, and I went like this and looked, and the fence had it's kind of, about like this, but it was up about that high where somebody, so I just kept inching my way in the mud, and that guy turned his head, and I went, me and this other kid, I says, come on. I says, when I say go, we're going. And he says, where we go? I said, out under that fence. And I says, we're on it was like, this was the compound. There was nothing over here. There was a road back to the barracks and stuff. And he says, where are we going? I said, just follow me. So that guy turned his head, and we went out, run around, went right back to where the headquarters were. It was a 3/4 ton with a tarp on it. Got in the back of that. They went right back to the company area. We went in, took a shower, went to Tigerland, had a beer.
This was all your preparation.
This was your training.
Yeah.
Your training.
Yeah, you were training.
You gotta learn where all the bars at.
Right, right.
So basically, their job was to put it to you, and you were kind of to withhold.
You were supposed to try to
Try
escape,
to-
yeah.
Okay, well, you did.
Yeah, I just happened to notice the fence, and you know, and you didn't have a pistol belt or nothing on, so your canteen and that ammo pouches and all of that stuff didn't catch on the fence. It was just fatigues. And
So how many months were you in Vietnam and actually sort of
a whole year,
fired that? Yeah, yeah.
365 days.
Well, but after you were shot, did they put you in the hospital or just?
I went to the aid
Patched you up?
station, and they put peroxide. I said, good enough. I says, I kept that. I didn't bring the helmet home. I got in a fight with the first supply sergeant where it was at. And, well, I had it. I was wearing it. And I wanted to bring it home, and then he started, and I just, fine, whatever. I said, I just want to get the hell out of here. And
Well,
because he tried to charge me, my feet were rotten off from being wet all the time, and I needed a new pair of boots. I walked into the supply room, supposed to just, you know, give them to you.
yeah.
He set the boots up there, and he said, that'll be $50. I went like this, my 45. I had 8 rounds in a magazine, 1 in the chamber on half-cock safety. I set it down, I pulled the hammer back, I said, paid in full.
Paid in full.
You got your boots.
Got my boots.
Well, were you then sent out into the fights again? I mean, after
Oh, yeah.
you've been injured, that wasn't enough to keep you out.
Oh, no.
Ah.
And then what I learned in Boy Scouts, I helped save a friend of mine's right leg. His name was Lenny Kupfner from Minnesota. We were on operations up north, and it was wet rice paddies. We was on a dike, and it was up probably 200 yards to a tree line. Me and Lenny was right halfway there out in front of everybody, and all we wanted to do was go to that tree light and eat. We hadn't eaten nothing for 2 days, and after Tet started, and they opened up on us, come down that rice paddy dike. Same thing, I went like this, and that dirt's flying up, missed me, hit Lenny in the leg. And I jumped on this side. The rice paddy was right at a cross. Well, Lenny went here, and I went here. So then I heard him screaming, and he had got shot in the calf, and that AK-47 round run up his leg and come out above his knee. Well, I didn't know it then. And he's, you know, and of course, and it's so loud in a firefight. I mean, you got people hollering and whatever, and I tried to get over that dike to get to him. As soon as I get my arm up or something, here come that machine gun down that weak, and so then I even tried throwing like yellow smoke. That's how you mark it to where you want the choppers yellow or green, whatever, so that the choppers know where you're at. Wherever the smoke is, that's where they land. Dust off choppers for the wounded or gunships. And they know that wherever the smoke is, that's friendly forces there. And so I tried that, and then the goddamn bullets would come through the smoke. So, and he's screaming, and he's not from me to you, Barb, you know.
Yeah.
So I says, all right, let's calm down, you know, we're hollering back. He says, tell me what's the matter. And he says, my leg is blowed up, it's all blowed to hell. And I says, how far up, how far down? What? He says, from the calf to right above my knee. He says, the blood's running. I said, yeah, I can imagine. And I told him, I says, okay. Now I says, listen, take your shoelace out of your boots and wrap it around the top part of your leg. Take your pen, if you still got it, and make a thing and twist it. Make a tourniquet
out of it.
And I says, slow it down. I says, whatever you do, don't shut it off or you're going to lose your leg. So he got calmed down enough. He says, it's working. I says, leave it. And he was, when me and Wayne Davis were home on leave together, Lenny was down at Fitzsimmons. You know, went down and got him, brought him up to the house to spend Easter with us. And
He was the one with the leg.
yeah.
Huh. So you had a leave, and you came home,
Yeah, after Vietnam.
but you didn't have to. Did you go back to Vietnam then after that?
No, I only had 4 months left to do in the
Oh.
service.
Okay. So what you said, the Purple Heart? What was that? Because of your injuries, or because you saved the life?
Took the hair off
Yeah.
where I got shot.
But you received a Purple Heart.
Yeah, for being wounded.
So that's what it is. When you get wounded in battle, everyone gets the Purple Heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they present it to you? Or did they just send it to you? The Purple Heart.
They gave it to me when I left.
Okay.
And then, they sent a thing to my mom, because it says the date that I got it in there. And then I got a Bronze Star with a V device for valor. And to this day, I don't know who put me in for it.
Do you remember what battle it was in?
Yeah.
How many battles were you in? I mean, how many?
I have no idea.
Was it like daily? Was it?
Sometimes it was not so much a battle, but like sniper fire. You were out in the bush most of the time, every day. And
I was reading a letter from General Westmoreland to another officer, a friend of his, and he described Vietnam as being an impossible war because you didn't know where the battle was going to be at times. It was like they'd come in, you'd have a battle, and then in the night they'd leave and go elsewhere. It wasn't like World War II, World War I.
Yeah.
You couldn't, it was difficult figuring out.
Because I think it's on one of them CDs. That we, as far as I was concerned, good thing I didn't see Westmoreland. That some of the shit he had us doing, pulling bodies out of tunnels and stuff for body count. That was the big thing. And you know, and you got a rope and these things be laying out in 120-degree temperature and trying to pull them out. You know, and we used to call them black pajamas that they wore. You know, they'd come off, the skin had come off, and then they'd say, oh, there's one, there's, you know, I said, there's...
Did you have to go into the tunnels every time? Did you
I
go
went in a couple of them.
Were they quite intricate?
Oh, yeah, they had hospitals in there and everything. Yeah, I just took filters off the cigarettes of your C rations, use them for earplugs and take you 45. And I went in I went in a couple of them and I said, nah, I'm not, because they usually had them booby trapped with snakes or grenades or.
One story you told me, well, tell the story about the snakes and the leeches and.
Yeah, the bamboo vipers. We used to call them two-steps. That's what you'd get after it bit you. About 2 steps. And on the leeches, shit, the leeches are this long, big around. I got holes on my shins, under my, I don't know if you can see them. There's some on both legs, though. And that's the only thing the mosquito repellent did. It took the leeches off. You squirt them and they'd fall off. We used to thing go like this. So when they'd latch onto you, squeeze till they blew up.
What was it like then coming home from being in the midst of the war and then suddenly you're back here and
It was hard to get used to the quiet.
yeah.
Of course, and then any loud noise, you bailed under something or.
Did you ever think of re-enlisting?
You
didn't
don't
miss
even
it.
want to know what I told that captain when he suggested it.
I had similar experience, I guess.
You did too when
Yeah.
the question came up.
They just
as to
said, I
whether
guess the re-enlistment NCO is not going to be talking to you. I says, pretty good idea.
You take the hint real well.
Well, I had a little experience getting jacked around on being promoted E5. First time I went up, passed it, 26 allegations come down. Guess where my name was? 27th. 3 months later, take the test again, pass it, lost my paperwork. 3 months goes by and I got 3 months left in the Army. 3 months left on Okinawa. I'm done. And they says, the NCOIC, the OIC, my trick sheet were in our section. And he says, want to talk to you about putting you up for E5 again. I says, no disrespect. I says, you can tear that stripe in 3 places and you can put it up years and years and years. And I says, what do you think about that? And he says, I guess you're not going to be talking to the re-enlistment guy. And I said, yeah, you're right.
Well, that's like when Megan set that thing up down at the library with the Veterans Museum.
Yeah.
Well, I started talking like, you have all listened to what I've said about Vietnam. Down there I'd start, and them guys, now don't get me wrong, they're all vets or whatever, but they were majors, captains, and it was the same old bullshit. Political, that's all they were concerned with. they didn't want to hear what I wanted,
didn't wanna
what
hear
I
your
had to
story.
say. So I just shut up and said, that's,
Well, I'm glad we're getting the opportunity.
Is that typical of people that you met when you returned? That they really didn't want to talk about really what was happening? It was,
well, I had talked to Buddy and,
uh,
and Tony Cisneros, you know.
uh,
Well, I wanted to know what the hell I was getting into. And I figured they're home, so what to expect.
what you could expect when you got home?
Yeah, there was quite a few people there, but of course my old man wasn't there. He was doing his thing at Rocky Flats because what he was concerned with was one of these,
Dollar signs?
the
Yeah.
almighty dollar.
So was the town welcoming when you came home, Tom?
Pretty much, but they had no idea what you went through.
No.
You know, and I mean, that's not their fault. You know, because a lot of the stuff that was written up in papers and whatever is making it look good, and you know it's all garbage because, you know, we did take back whatever, but just like 80s.
You won some battles. Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying?
But the political aspect of it was not being told as it was happening.
Yeah.
That's the way it was happening.
Well, we had one bad incident. One New Year's Eve, we were down, Russ and I, to Cummings partying. And Russ says, well, go down to the BFW. It was next to the Blue Parrot at the time.
Yeah.
He says, go down and have a drink with the World War, II vets. Well, Long Jack Caranci, Tuffy Zerini, Charlie Grosso, and somebody else was there. Well, they met us at the front door. He says, what are you doing? He said, come down and have a drink with you vets. Us vets. He said, no, you're not welcome.
I remember you. I remember that.
Yeah.
I
And
remembered it.
Tuffy punched Greg in the face, and I had to grab Greg. I said, no, let's go. We went back. Russ goes, how'd it go? And we told him, he says, come with me, boys. And Russ walked in there and he said, I want you to apologize to these gentlemen. You did. He said, they served just like you did. So and buy him a drink too. And they did. But I thought, why would you treat us that way? Just because we went to a different.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Legion was the same way. I got into it with Joe Ray.
Because they didn't think it was a real war.
Yeah.
It wasn't called a war.
You know, and I told Joe, I says, you can take your Legion and stuff it. I says, my friends are just as dead as your friends were.
And we didn't ask to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't.
He was
going-
Korean. He was a Korean vet.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah. So there was animosity with the vets, between the vets.
That one night, and I don't know why, but it was like pretty much all forgotten. I think, just, I don't know. It was strange. For coming to growing up in a town that was pretty friendly, I mean, everybody knew everybody, and coming back to that was kind of weird.
How did all the anti-war, the colleges and the
Oh, yeah.
marches,
Yeah.
how did that affect you, knowing what
Not
you
real
went
well.
through?
Did you hear about it when you were over there? Did you hear about the...
No, my mom never did say nothing about it. Which was fine. I mean,
So it wasn't
well,
something...
you knew what was going on. I mean, there was people that. Yeah, because they did that to us up in Greeley.
What was that?
Started with calling us baby killers, and
Okay.
well, we had a little instigation too, because I had a coat on that says, "When I die, I'll go to heaven," because I've already spent my time in hell in
Right.
South Vietnam, and it was me and Wayne and Larry Martella, and then they started, and I told this guy, I said, "You better quit with Wayne." Next thing I know, this guy's face is barely hanging on. There's blood everywhere.
So you got in the middle of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, let it just, let them think what they want. Who cares? I'm home. I made it. But that's what was so bad about Eddie Szymanski. He couldn't let it alone. And the Marines used him for 2 tours. We sat up on the hill, and I watched the guy beat his face into the phone booth.
I was there.
And
This is Eddie.
Eddie turned around and spit blood on him, and he says, "You guys aren't going to help him?" We didn't say nothing. He says, "If he's big enough to open his mouth, he deserves." And he just, if you had hair that was over 5/8 of an inch long, he was on you.
Because you didn't serve, basically. Yeah.
No.
And then he started getting like that with us.
Some Marines, they brainwash you to a certain extent.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
I run across Eddie on Okinawa by just dumb chance. Me and my friend Pat Cameron he was from Pontiac, and we got off work one night and we went down to this one restaurant in town, in Koza, and we're sitting there eating by the window, and I looked out and I looked at Pat and I go, "Oh, homeboy just walked by, I'll be right back." So I ran out to hollered, "Hey, you dumb Polak," because I knew I'd get his attention there. I did. He come a running, he was ready to fight until he said, "Oh, Roger, it's you." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I didn't know if I said Eddie, he probably wouldn't turn around." He said, "Probably not." He said, so we laughed and had a little conversation, and I told him where to go the next night. He said, "I'll meet you down there." Well, I had to work, and I couldn't get none of my buddies to swap with me, so I never got to see him again until we got home. But Okinawa was interesting. Greg Camps, who moved to Louisville, it was Joe Camps, Greg, and Timmy. They moved back. I think Greg was 5 when they moved here. Well, of course, he grew up with Tom and I. We went to school together in high school, and so Greg and I go to Europe with Donnie Cummings. So I'm on Okinawa. About 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm off, and I get a CQ runner comes up and he says, "Roger, you got a phone call." And I says, "What are they calling me at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning?" I go down and I said, "Who's this?" He says, "It's Greg." I said, "Where you at?" He says, "I'm on Okinawa." Well, I said, "Okay, I'll come get you." Well, I assumed he was at Gigone Air Force Base. I go down there. Apparently he went to the bathroom when I got there, because I looked everywhere, couldn't find him. I said, "Well, I don't think he's here." So we went back, and I had woken up my buddy Bill at the time. We go back, and pretty soon, "Roger, your buddy's calling again." I said, "Okay." "Greg, ask somebody where you're at." He says, "Okay." He says, "I'm at Kadena." I says, "In the passenger area where people get," he says, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, I'll be down." And I'll get back down there. So I'm walking around, they see GIs, like this, with their hats down, and all of a sudden I hear this. I said, "Bill, follow that noise." He goes, "What?" I says, "I grew up with that." I says, "That's my buddy. I know that snore." Walked over and woke him up. "Greg, oh."
Boy, he had one too, I'll tell you.
So you found him by his snore.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I put up with it all through Europe. It's a good thing I
He
could
asked
sleep.
about or told me something that about the Pueblo.
Oh, yeah.
Tell that story.
A friend of mine, he was from Philly, and when we got our orders, he got sent to Hawaii, and of course we went to Okinawa, and then months later, I'm working the teletypes, and Korea's bouncing the keys, and I got on there, and "What's up?" He says, "I'm going to talk to Specialist Delforge." I said, "I'm speaking." "Who's this?" He said, "This is Sal Kenish." I said, "Where are you? How come you're in Korea?" He goes, "Well, put me on the phone line." So he did. So we talked to him for a while, and then a few months later, I can't remember exactly when, but banging the keys again. Got on there, and he says, "Tell your trick sheet to put on the phone line and put it on speaker. I got something to tell you guys." I said, Sarge, put us up on speaker. Korea's talking. Puts it up. He says, okay, men, they just captured the Pueblo. I mean, this was within 10 minutes.
You knew it before the president.
I think so.
Yeah.
He says, and they're telling me that after I get off shift, I got to go to the armory. He says, I don't know where it's at. I says, oh, they'll show you. He says, we're going to go to war with Korea. I said, isn't Vietnam bad enough? He says, now I got to go carry a rifle. I said, but that was smoothed over pretty quick. The politicians got involved, and I think that was all done within less than 2 weeks.
What's the story of the Pueblo?
It was a spy ship, and they got inside inside of they were, I think it was a 13-mile radius of Vietnam, Korea, whatever, same thing with Vietnam, but they were outside Korea. Well, they got inside of that 13-mile, so the Chinese said, nuh-uh. I said, no. Well, we wasn't doing anything. Yeah, right. Somebody on the street could tell you it was a spy ship, and they're lying. No, we didn't know. We were fishing. Yeah, right.
So did they jail the?
Oh yeah, they took all the crew off.
Well, how long did they have? I'm trying to remember how long.
I don't
they
think
had
it
that
was.
captured.
I don't think it was more than 2 weeks before they got it all settled out.
Yeah.
The guard government finally said, "Yeah, okay, you caught us. Give us back our guys, and we'll move our ship." And so I can't remember all the
Gene's got a
details, but
question.
it wasn't that. But it was an interesting little scenario. Going like,
yeah.
no, we were fishing. Yeah, right. Fishing for what? Secret information.
Secrets.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Gene?
Tom, I wanted to mention that I did go to the panel that you were on at the library that you were talking about earlier. And I had the same thought that I didn't get to hear your story. So I'm really grateful for you to come
Oh, well, thank
today
you.
and tell.
Yeah, because boy, when Ted started,
Yeah,
They were-
that was inappropriate, and I'm really pleased that you're here. Both of you are here today. And by the way, you have a great head of hair.
Yeah, we're so happy that we still have hair.
yeah, that's what I tell everybody. I don't care if it turns pink, as long as it stays up there. Yeah, but that night that Ted started,
Yeah.
Now, tell us about that.
I mean, they hit every major base from Saigon, Cameron Bay, all the way north to the DMZ. The hill we were on at Chu Lai was a couple miles off the coast. They didn't hit our hill, but you could see the airstrip at Chu Lai. And they used to have what they call quad 50s. And that's a deuce and a half with sandbags and 450 caliber machine guns and a truckload of ammo. And they had the quad 50s backed on the airstrip, fire and 100 rounds a minute, whatever. And then the gunships were hovering like 4 or 5 foot off the ground with all the rockets and minigun. They guys invented their own things for the M60s. They mounted them in the doors so they could just swing them, where they didn't have to hold them, and then they put the miniguns in there on both sides. And the minigun fires 3,000 rounds a minute out of one side, 6,000 out of this one. 3, 6, back and forth so the barrels don't melt. That would, in firefight, if we could get water, you just stick the M60 down in the rice paddy, cool it off. But then they
That
chopped
minigun was like a Gatling gun, wasn't it?
Pardon?
It was like a Gatling gun, the mini one.
Well, they called it. It's a minigun. It rotates and it just goes.
Kind of like
I mean, it is 3,000 rounds comes. It's amazing. Because then we used to call it Puff, the Magic Dragon. It was an old C-130. They had different names for it at different places up and down the coast. But where we were up north, we called it Puff, and it was C-130, and then they cut holes in the side, and they had automatic. They had miniguns, 20 millimeter miniguns like off the fighter jets. M79. rounds which are about that long, 17, about that big around, high explosives. They go. I carried one. It comes out of the barrel. Well, the picture of it's in there, and it spins. It goes 15 meters, and then it arms itself and blows up. It's like a grenade. It's a grenade launcher, is what it's called. But these are automatic ones out of them. And that plane had come over, and its sky would turn red with the tracers, because every sixth round, fifth or sixth round in them, that belt of ammo is a tracer, so you know where it's going. And it just turned red from the sky, just.
Wow.
But they choppered us up to, and I had spent, after R&R, I got 2 R&Rs because I got in good with this Gillespie headquarters company, and but I stayed with a kid from the Air Force. We'd go down, I stayed an extra, I got my week R&R, so I stayed I always bucked the system. Stayed an extra 5 days at Da Nang. The guy from the Air Force kept calling the company area that couldn't get a plane out from Da Nang back down the coast 50 miles to Chu Lai. My lieutenant, when I finally got there, he said, "You could have walked in a week." I said, "How about that, huh?" He's a pretty cool guy, though, yeah, let me tell you. We took care of him, he took care of us. But we lit on, and China Beach was nice. China Beach was an in-country R&R. And I mean, it was really nice.
They filmed that series they had that on China Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a beautiful place.
Yeah, and they had a show, they had Freedom Hill, it was called, air-conditioned show, but it was blown to hell from, and then we went to help 1st Marine Division. They run into 1,500 NVA, a couple thousand meters from their headquarters company. They had like an island, and they were set up there, and it was shaped like this, with an escape thing out the land out the backside. And I was Alpha Company, and they sent Charlie, Alpha, we were on one side, we were away from that. Well, this battalion commander for Charlie Company got him out in the middle, and there was probably 150, 200 yards of rice paddies to that island thing. He gets Charlie Company out there, tells them to charge. Well, they got out in the middle of it, and they opened up on it and wiped out Charlie Company. So us and Bravo Company went up. Delta Company was trying to get him. We spent 2 days trying to get the bodies out. And there was this jerk E6 sergeant in 2nd Platoon. He'd take the bodies, whether they were North Vietnamese or villagers or whatever, and if the gold in their teeth, he'd take a bayonet, dig the gold out. And,
Oh my gosh.
you know, and he'd laugh about it. I says, "You know, bud," I says, "payback's gonna be a real bitch someday." And I says, "When you meet up with the man upstairs," and I says, "there's just a few things you don't do, war or no war." And,
That's right.
well, he was in Charlie Company. We found him a day and a half later. He had 2 marks on his neck, fang marks. I says, "How about that, bud?"
Hi, Brigadi.
Did either of you know Johnny Manzares?
Manzanares, yeah.
Manzanares.
He was the first casualty, Boulder County, killed in Vietnam.
And he had you grown up with him?
Yeah, it's from Lafayette. We knew the whole Manzanares family.
Well, Lonnie dated Johnny.
Yeah, Johnny was the one that got, I think he got killed over there, and so did Chuck Silva.
Do you keep in touch
No,
with?
Chuck's still alive.
Oh, is he?
Oh, yeah.
Who am I thinking? Somebody else.
Do you keep in touch with your buddies from?
He does. I did when I was at Fort Monmouth. Well, at Basic, I met a guy from Longmont His name was Joe Mares, and after that, we did run around a little bit together. And then another guy by the name of Mike Chikalakis was from Denver, and his grandpa lived in New York City. And I spent a weekend with him and his grandpa. And then two guys from Denver, Mike Stiles and Gary Klingensmith, they came up after we all got out, but their moms and went to the Blue Parrot, and I got to meet their moms and they got to meet mine. But pretty much lost contact with all of them. And then over the years I've run across, Joe once in a while, and I haven't seen him for years, or none of them. None of the guys from Denver.
What was it like coming back, and did you go to work right away? Or?
Yeah, you had to.
Partied.
Parties as much as you could, yeah.
You worked and parties, yeah. What kind of work? You're still working, right, Roger?
Kind of.
Part time.
Yeah, well, me and Roger worked together putting in windshields in Boulder too, and
Then we ended up, explosive fabricators, me and him worked down there. I was down there 12 years, and you were down there a little over 20, I think.
Do you ever think you'd like to go back to
I'd love to go
see
back to Okinawa. Oh yeah, I'd love to go back to
you
Okinawa.
no.
No?
The only way I'd go back to Vietnam was if I could run the button on the bomb doors of a B-52. Push the release button. Always said that we'd end this real quick. Start down south at Cameron Bay, put them B-52s wingtip to wingtip, start unloading their ordnance as they're heading north, and give them a number, 1-800-QUIT.
Well, Tom, you told me that I don't know how long ago, but your group got together.
Did I what?
That the guys in your,
Oh, we did my squad, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we got together like six years ago now, in Kansas City. It was the first time we'd seen each other in 42 years. And yeah, it was pretty neat. My wife, Dan, was kind of apprehensive about going. I said, "You'll like them." And she couldn't believe it. She says, "You guys are together 10 minutes, and it was like 42 years didn't exist." And I said, "It's pretty spiffy."
Well, you become brothers. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, when they're.
You brought some pictures. You want to tell us about them? Your albums here?
Yeah, mine's the black one.
I think if you open it, Jean may be able to take some pictures of it.
That's up at
That's
Chulai. Yeah, these pictures right here, 5
Kind
years
of hold
old.
it up.
Can you tilt it?
Yeah, 5 years older than my granddaughter now. When I was there.
Here, let me
And
turn.
that's the hill at Chulai that
Should I turn some
we lived on, and
Yeah.
I can't see.
Yeah, can you just, turn page? There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Stay there, Tom, I think it's fine.
Roger's getting it.
got it.
Yeah. Okay.
We were hoping that you would take these down to the museum and let Bridget make a copy of them.
The whole thing?
She could.
Well, whatever she wants,
Yeah.
she'll go through it and,
Yeah.
and pick. To take, yeah.
I've got extra copies of these.
Oh, do you?
Oh, well, then you could
okay,
just give
yeah.
them to her, yeah.
Yeah, she would give them back. She
Yeah.
would take them. So,
You gotta turn
Yeah.
Go ahead
page.
and flip it.
what do you tell? You both have children or grown children now, Roger and Tom. What did you tell them? Did you talk about?
Yep, I told them exactly just like we've been sitting here. Because I got in that bag, there's that belt that's in there is from a North Vietnamese Army officer. And you can still see his name's written on there too, the pen.
I'll get it.
Yeah, and they will get that on the film. So, are your children interested in your stories?
Yeah, they were. Well,
and-
our youngest daughter died 4 years ago. She was 39. But the granddaughter says, "Did he give you the belt?" I says, "I don't think so." I says,
Not
"You
yet.
know that goose that you shot with me out there?" I says, "This goose shoots back." And I says, "I won."
I told my son, I said, I said, I served, you have, my two brothers served in the Navy, and my two brother-in-laws served in the Army. I says, we served enough for this family. I says, don't enlist. They don't take you, don't go.
Yeah, you can't read it no more. See if you get a magnifying
Show
glass.
the camera in there. Yeah, yeah. But just tell us. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. There it is.
So that's the belt from a North Vietnamese
Officer, yeah. He had a R45 on his hip, plus all our maps.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, Tom, when you went through the villages, I mean, how did you find the people? I mean, what we would see.
And dissipated. So me and Ed started picking up them pavers. Well, we found about 4.5 tons of polished rice, plus AK-47s, plus ammo, plus mortars.
Oh, they were hiding them in the
Sure.
Yeah.
And
rice. Huh.
well, then we found these 2 bottles. We figured it was rice wine, had a banana leaf in for a stopper. So we got 2 of the villagers to drink it, and then we watched them. They didn't fall down dead. So it was
Good
Go
stuff.
in a pack. But there's a picture of me in here falling off the rice paddy dike, 'cause with Ed laughing behind me. The lieutenant says, "Where the hell do you guys find liquor out here?" I says, "We're just good. We can sniff it out, sir."
Did you see the program on the Vietnam War, the Ken Burns?
Yeah, the same old garbage.
So
I watched the first 1.5 of them. Said that it's just like being down at the library, and I said they weren't.
you're getting the military side of it.
Yeah, it's not the guys.
political.
It's always got to be upper echelon rank or whatever. Or,
Not the guy in the trenches.
yeah. Now that movie, We Were Soldiers, that's pretty good with Mel Gibson.
Did you feel like that was pretty authentic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a book we got. I don't know. Me and Jan were someplace in a bookstore. I got a thing that says it was Vietnam, and to come to find out when I started it, that's what it was about. That's the name of the. It was our unit before I got to Tain In, the 196th Light Infantry, and what they ran into in Tain In. It was pretty much calmed down when I got there. That's when we started moving north. But yeah, it was pretty interesting. It's a really interesting article in there. And they come over and they beat the NBA. And they came over from the States. And so it was a pretty good unit.
I had a question for Roger. When TET was going on, what kind of communications were you doing?
Well, we were only allowed to monitor it for a few seconds just to make sure that everything was running like it was supposed to. You know, top secret, teletype and phone.
And wasn't there one story about SAC or?
No, the SAC 1 circuit went out, and we rerouted it to SAC 2, and it took us about, maybe a minute and a half, but it delayed a bunch of B-52s that were on a bombing mission to Vietnam. Delayed them for about 5 minutes. So, and it wasn't, people weren't too happy about, say it wasn't my fault it went out. We found out why. Some substation guy was buffing the floor and knocked out the station, and he had to bypass that. So, well, there's some little substation somewhere, yeah. And we had communication with a mobile trailer too in Vietnam.
Well,
We're coming to the end of our time, so any last thoughts or questions? Jean, do you have any? Eddie, any last?
No, I think this poem would be a good thing to.
Why
we have
don't,
time for
yeah,
that.
let's try reading this. Tell us about what this poem is from, and Eddie, do you
wanna
want to read it, or
Tom?
Eddie can read it,
oh,
either way.
they should have a big one down at the museum.
Yeah, but why don't we want to end our film with this, if we could?
One of you just want to read part of it, and tell us where it comes from.
Oh, he can do it, he's the one that,
Who wrote it, Tom?
Howard P. Spangenberg, he was our American history teacher.
And why did he write it? What was happening? when-
I don't know, we didn't even know we were getting it till we went down to the museum that Labor Day. And
read it or,
We have 2 minutes, so.
2 minutes, so read a little bit of it.
pardon?
Read a little bit of it.
Oh, it says, we're proud of you, our vets of Nam. To you belongs our hero's palm. For when our country's call went forth, you answered and proved your worth. And in that bloody mortal strife, 'twas you confirmed our way of life, who kept the ism from our shore, and you did more, oh yes, much more. You bought us time to understand so we could think and rightly plan, not to rush with blundering haste into another swamp of waste. For you took up a ghastly fight in shadows of a frightening night, a war in which nobody wins, a jungle rife with mankind's sins. And now, as years move on and temples gray, we look upon another day, a day that's good and great and grand. All this because you made your stand. God bless you, Howard P. Spangenberg.
That's a wonderful way to end.
Yes, it
So
is.
I want to thank you both for doing this for us and for people, the Louisville citizens. And just can't think of a better way to express what your thoughts were. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome. Thank you. It's nice to be asked to do it.
Finally,
You
huh?
finally get to tell you the footman story. Yeah.
You know, and like probably too with Raj, is what's amazing. I don't know what I did at 5 o'clock this morning, but I know what I did 50 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
Yeah.
don't forget none of that. That's always plastered someplace. And, you know, it's just nice to see people thanking the servicemen and women. And,
We should do more of it.
Yeah, I tried to do that whenever I see
Yeah,
one.
we should do
And then I
more.
forgot.
well, there's a guy, we went to our breakfast, you know, 2 weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
Some guy come